We'd like to welcome you to the online public open house for the town of Innisfil's Transportation Master Plan. The town of Innisfil is considering the transportation services and improvements that the town should provide over the next 20 to 30 years. The objective is to develop a strategy for implementing or providing all appropriate services at the town level of government related to roads, transit, cycling, and walking. The strategy will include a plan for capital investment, policies, and support systems. So this presentation is intended to inform the public of the planning process for the improvements and to engage all stakeholders to provide input and insights. I'd like to note that this presentation and the slides will be made available on the town's project website and I believe on YouTube as well. This project is being led by the town of Innisfil's engineering department in cooperation with the planning services department. Meredith Goodwin is the town's project manager, providing oversight on the project along with Carolina Cotillo and Paul Pentakanen from the planning services. My name is Ray Backey. I'm the senior vice president at RJ Burnside and Associates and the project manager for this assignment. Gordon Huey is our senior transportation planner. Gordon and I are leading a consultant team providing support to the town. We'll walk through the project process and background information. This meeting is intended to provide you with background information, begin to collect your input, priorities, and questions. Questions can be posed during the presentation through the chat box function. It's the little, I believe it's a little speaking bubble during the presentation, and we'll respond to them at the end of the presentation. If there is time, we'll be able to accept verbal questions for anyone who uses the raise hand function after the presentation and our response to the chat box questions. This is the first of two public meetings. We'll also be reaching out to the public and specific agencies, stakeholders through surveys and direct inquiries. This public meeting is being held as a virtual public information center given the constraints associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. For this first meeting, we'll be providing a description of the project and study objective, existing conditions that provide context to the study, a preliminary assessment of the transportation needs and opportunities, environmental, cultural, and social objectives that will help guide the master plan, and a vision for providing transportation services and infrastructure over the next 3 decades. We'll conclude this presentation with the next steps for the project and highlight how you can contribute your input. To allow you, all of you who are attending tonight, to provide live input, we have included a few questions to poll participants and give you a sense of the opinions of your fellow residents. To participate, you can either hold your smartphone over the QR code, just as on the left side of this slide.
Ray, you're not sharing your screen right now.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
I thought maybe you were waiting, and then when you said that, I'm like, no, he's not sharing.
Okay.
I also would let everyone let everyone know that's joining us that this meeting is being recorded as it is being streamed live on YouTube. So.
Okay. So now, my apologies for that. To allow you to sort of share your comments, we are using the Slido software or website. And you can hold your smartphone over the QR code that's shown here, just on the left side, and click on the pop-up, or you can visit the slido.com site and enter the code that is shown on the right side. After following these instructions, you'll be directed to a page that will say right off the bat, no active polls at this time, and that's fine. The polls will appear throughout this presentation, so feel free to respond with the most appropriate answer and hit send. I should note that depending on the length of the question, the size of your phone, you may have to scroll down to hit send. Alternatively, if you don't have a smartphone handy, feel free to enter your responses to the questions in the chat box. We did want to start off with a short video that explains the project objectives. So if you'll bear with us, we have a brief introduction to the project. And I hope that I have the sound on for this. And here we go.
The town of Innisfil needs your input on their 2021 Transportation Master Plan. Innisfil is proactively planning for the future with new communities, major transit, and other exciting and progressive developments. The town's vision for the new orbit community is bold and aspirational. Town staff and council have worked hard over the past few years, but they could not have done it without your input. We will need your input again for this TMP. The population is expected to grow from approximately 50,000 people now to 100,000 by 2051. Intra-regional travel will be more accessible with a new GO station at the heart of the planned orbit development located south of Alcona. Getting on the freeway will be even quicker with a new interchange at Highway 400 and 6th Line. And a robust active transportation network is vital for healthy and active lifestyles. A lot has changed over this past year with the COVID-19 pandemic. It has affected people traveling to stores, affected supply chains for goods and agriculture, and people are now traveling closer to home for work and necessities. Although this past year has affected the way people and goods move, it has given municipalities the chance to explore the potential for emerging transportation technologies such as telecommuting, on-demand transit, and mobility as a service. With the town transforming so rapidly, we need your ideas on how to shape our transportation system. How do we ensure that the roads are designed to get you to work or your leisurely activities faster and safer? How do we ensure we improve your experiences taking transit, walking and cycling on our roads and trails? How can we improve our innovative and new Uber transit system? Finally, how do we help you move your shipments or receive your deliveries more efficiently? We are following the guidance of the town's innovative Innisfil strategic plan that focuses on the community first, innovative solutions, and respecting the balance between urban growth and rural roots. With those guidelines in place, your input will shape and define the vision and goals of the town's Transportation Master Plan. We want to build a future for you, shaped by you. This is the first round of engagement. It starts now and leads up to the public open house this August 25th, 2021. We will take your input to develop a recommended transportation plan. We will then seek your input again during a second round of engagement leading up to the second public open house this fall 2021. We can't wait to hear your input. To provide your ideas and for more details, please visit the website below.
So with that background, we were wondering, we have our first question from the Slido app. And so if you've logged on to Slido on your phone or your computer, you can vote on this question. You can just sort of, again, hover over with your camera over the QR code and hit the pop-up and give us an indication of what your top transportation issue is. This is just a snapshot. We have a much more comprehensive survey online that we'll be talking about a little later. But this we thought would be good to get a sense of what your fellow residents are thinking. That's great. I'll give it a couple more minutes for this first one, and then everybody will be up to speed for the second and third questions. Very interesting. Okay, so definitely looks like active transportation and transit opportunities is a big issue for many of you. Local congestion as well, and we'll monitor this as well as the more comprehensive survey as we go forward. and incorporate that into the process. We'll talk more about that as we get later into the slide deck. So I'm just going to maybe move on to the next slide. The town of Innisfil has completed a transportation master plan in 2018, just 3 years ago, that planned infrastructure to the year 2041. And since that time, the 2041 land use forecasts have been refined and population targets have been established for 2051 at the county level. This plan will develop a strategy for road improvements, trails, sidewalks, and design practices and transit solutions to the year 2051 in light of this additional growth through to 2051. The study itself is being carried out in accordance with the municipal class environmental assessment process, which is an approved process under the Ontario Environmental Assessment Act. The scope will identify transportation needs and opportunities and a vision for future conditions, develop alternative strategies for addressing the needs and opportunities and achieving the vision, and to select a preferred solution strategy. The design and implementation of specific projects will follow this process with separate studies. This transportation master plan is not being carried out in isolation. It's informed by a number of provincials, Simcoe County, and other town of Innisfil studies. The province of Ontario sets broad planning policy for growth and the environment. The province also provides regional infrastructure through the Ministry of Transportation and Metrolinx, and will be guided by their documents identified on slide 9. The provincial policy statement and places to grow plan guide how development is intended to proceed within the Greater Golden Horseshoe area. The provincial environmental plans provide policies related to the Greenbelt, provincially significant wetlands, and other areas of significant interest. The province has also undertaken planning studies related to alternate route plans for highway widenings, including the 400, for new interchanges, including the interchange at at 6th Line for Highway 400, and future GO rail stations, including the future Innisfil station. Simcoe County has an official plan and planning processes that help develop allocation of residential and employment lands. The county is also developing an updated transportation master plan for growth to 2051 in parallel with this study, including accommodation of county road improvements, trails, and transit strategies. The town of Innisfil official plan, economic strategy, tourism, and cultural plans provide policies guiding development objectives. The recently approved orbit community and related plans will be a key component to the future growth in the town. And this transportation master plan will reference and build on all of these studies. This transportation master plan will be developed in recognition of existing communities and travel characteristics, in addition to the future planned growth. We will pay specific attention to the settlement areas, employment areas, and recreational areas of the town. Planning for the new communities such as orbit and expansion areas of existing communities will have regard for the safety and operational needs of these established neighborhoods. Skip the slide there. We have studied and will consider the travel patterns within the town, how far residents are commuting, where they're going, when they are traveling, and what modes they are using when traveling. We'll also be inquiring whether these patterns may change in the future. So with that, we have our second question. We would like to know how your patterns may change in the future. We've established an online survey that delves into the travel patterns of residents and how patterns may change in the future. And so one example is the effects of COVID-19. It's impacted travel patterns over the past 18 months. More people have been working and going to school from home. And just this snapshot, we were just curious to know, how interested residents are in continuing to work from home or going to school from home once things return after COVID-19 and things are back to normal. So we are seeing interested part of the week is the majority of responses. We're seeing some not interested, some 20% currently interested for the entire week. And then, of course, some people are unable to work or attend school from home. Very good, very good. So thank you for responding. Responses are still coming in. And as I mentioned in the overall survey, the more comprehensive survey, we have a question similar to this. So again, we'd be very interested in you know, sort of a broader summary of these answers, and we will definitely come back. This is a very good sort of indication snapshot, but we'd be very interested in delving more into this specific issue. The provincial government developed a Place to Grow plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. It's designed to promote economic growth, increase housing supply, and support land use planning to the year 2051. Population and employment growth is allocated by the province of Ontario to the regions and counties, and Simcoe County allocates land uses to the town of Innisfil and its other local municipalities. Slide 14 summarizes the estimated 2021 land use, the endorsed 2031 and 41 land use, and the proposed draft 2051 population. Innisfil is expected to double in population by to 100,000 by 2051, and of course this plan looks to address the needs associated with that growth. In developing a transportation strategy, we must first establish just what transportation needs and preferred opportunities might be. At the provincial level, there are a number of planned and proposed improvements, including the widening of Highway 400 through Innisfil to 5 lanes per direction, the introduction of a new interchange of Highway 400 at 6th line, and a proposed alternate route to Highway 89 around Cookstown. At the county level, there are a number of county road widenings that were identified at the last Simcoe County Master Plan, including the widening of Yonge Street of County Road 4 through the town, the widening of Innisfil Beach Road, County Road 21, and the widening of County Road 53 and 54 at the north end from Innisfil Beach Road up to Barrie. The town road improvements were identified and planned in the 2018 Transportation Master Plan. This master plan update has investigated whether these improvements will be sufficient to address all the capacity needs through to 2041, and we are currently assessing the needs through to 2051. Preliminary forecasts from the town's transportation model indicate that a number of provincial, county, and town roads will have volumes that reach capacity, shown in red, or will approach capacity, as shown in orange on this map. Furthermore, there are a number of opportunities to address the connectivity of the town road system with road extensions and into new development areas, connections to address misaligned intersections, and bypasses of sensitive areas and other barriers. Slide 19 identifies these improvement opportunities. And I should note that there's a lot of information on the next few slides. I know it's going to be difficult for folks to absorb all of this, but because this is being recorded and the slides will be available on the town website, or we wanted to provide the information so that folks could you know, take what they can from this meeting, this presentation. And if there are questions that come following it, once you've had a chance to look at it online, you can always provide additional questions to us at that time. The existing conventional scheduled transit system is comprised of the GO bus routes and GO rail service from Barrie. The county has introduced the Lynx transit system, but it doesn't currently provide convenient connections to Innisfil origins and destinations. In 2017, the town and Uber collaborated on an on-demand transit service that's been the option for those who have physical or financial or other barriers to using the automobile for their mobility needs. Future opportunities will include service from the new planned GO rail station at the 6th line and the rail line with the orbit community. The Transportation Master Plan will consider the opportunities for service connections to the new GO rail station. And as demands grow, there may be opportunities to convert high demand Uber routes into scheduled transit routes. Opportunities may also exist for the Simcoe Link system to provide services to Innisfil destinations. So with that, we do have another question. The town of Innisfil and Uber collaboration has provided mobility options for town residents. We would like to know if there is a reason why you are not using the town Uber system or why you're not using it more. So if you have any thoughts on this, we'd be interested to see if there are any barriers to your use or use of your neighbors. Lack of need is leading the day. So this will help us understand whether there's some latent demand there that can be addressed through either information and clarification by the town, or whether the cost is an issue, whether conditions will improve when there is sort of more density, more potential drivers, and the waiting time might be reduced. Okay. Well, this is good. I mean, it's a positive sign that that the town has conveyed the message to the residents effectively, that people understand that the service is there. The service appears to be competitive, but it's really not lack of need as to why things aren't being used more. The service isn't being used more. But again, a more comprehensive version of this survey will be available on the website. So I'm just going to move on to a few other slides. There's a lot of information on these slides, but I just wanted to present some of the other scope that we'll be addressing in the master plan. The 2018 master plan identified planned sidewalk improvements and prioritized implementation. We're in the process of updating these priorities in light of collision data, location of walking destinations, network continuity, and public input. This plan will also identify strategies for improvement to pedestrian road crossings. The 2018 master plan also identified a cycling network improvements. This plan, transportation master plan update, will review these opportunities, including connectivity to the orbit community and providing methods for rationalizing the feasibility of planned routes, for example, natural environmental constraints or impacts. Our analysis has included data on high collision locations or hotspots. The highest frequency of collisions occur where volumes and exposure to collisions are the highest. It's sort of anticipated. Most collisions were either single motor vehicle or rear end collisions. There were 37 collisions over the last 5 years involving pedestrians and cyclists. with higher frequency in the Alcona and Cookstown communities. So our analysis is ongoing and will determine if there are any definable trends related to locations, particularly with respect to vulnerable users. And so we've summarized the transportation needs and opportunities from our analysis, including road capacity, operations, safety, active transportation, and transit. These needs and opportunities will be the basis for developing alternative strategies for improvements. I won't sort of walk through them all now, but they are available on the slide, and they will be the basis for our assessments moving forward. We've also included an assessment of the environment, cultural and social objectives to help guide this survey. As illustrated in the maps on this slide, there are several natural heritage features within the town which have been identified as potential constraints to future transportation infrastructure. These features include provincially significant wetlands, wellhead protection areas, and highly vulnerable aquifers and groundwater recharge areas. Obviously, we'll have to have consideration of these areas as we are assessing alternative solutions. The town has many cultural heritage features, including properties designated under the Ontario Heritage Act and listed under the Municipal Heritage Register. The transportation solution should avoid or mitigate impacts to these sites, and if possible, support these sites. In developing the transportation system, the town must consider various needs of the communities and businesses. Mobility needs may be affected by physical or financial or other barriers limiting access to employment, social connection, healthy living, or other town objectives to provide for its residents. So we recognize that the town should also be ready for the evolving technologies. Innisfil Transit the transit partnership with Uber is an example of sort of embracing technological change. It's Canada's first ride-sharing transit partnership. There are other opportunities like Turo, which is a shared mobility peer-to-peer platform, allowing vehicles owners to sort of rent out or share their vehicles. And there are a number of other changing technological changes that will influence conditions in the future, including autonomous and connected vehicles. So with that, I'll just maybe one other question. All levels of government are considering or implementing policies to address greenhouse gas emissions and are encouraging the use of clean fuel vehicles. However, we also want to hear your view on the use of alternative fuel vehicles, specifically what concerns you would have for a barrier to you purchasing an electric vehicle. So that's the question here is just looking to the future, what should the town be considering in any objectives to encouraging increased use of electric vehicles or cleaner vehicles? So, and we have seen this, the challenges associated with charging infrastructure, and definitely something that different jurisdictions are developing strategies for implementing publicly accessible charging stations. And then I guess the other aspect is how does new development incorporate some of these features? So I am going to move on. This is great. Again, we have another question like this in our comprehensive survey, but maybe I'll just quickly move on. The objectives of the previous page has led to previous pages has led to a draft vision, which is the basis for developing strategies and solutions. And just simply it states that Innisfil's transportation system, and this is the vision for this the draft vision for this transportation master plan. Innisfil's transportation system connects people and communities, fosters healthy living, and operates innovatively and effectively across the town as an environmentally and financially sustainable, resilient system ready for the future. So if given that, and certainly we're interested in any comments, if we're missing anything from this vision and this statement, that is what we are trying to achieve moving forward. And alternative strategies are being developed to achieve this statement, to address the needs and opportunities that we've presented so far. And to address these, this vision, 4 alternative strategies have been developed. They're similar to and build on the strategies that were developed in 2018. So we're not really starting from scratch. We're just building on those 4 strategies, or the strategies that were presented previously. The base case, which is in the environmental assessment process, is termed the sort of in quotes do nothing, which is really relies on the planned provincial and county improvements. So if the town were really to do nothing and all of the solutions were being presented by the province and county, this would be the case. The second alternative strategy is the status quo, which is really to do nothing more than the provincial and county improvements and the town improvements that were identified in 2018, which were the improvements that were seen to address the needs through to 2041, even though growth is proceeding to 2051. The third scenario, so it's number 2, alternative number 2, is a balanced investment strategy. So basically addressing the needs and opportunities and balancing the expenditure proportionately to what the system currently exists. So proportionately to improving roads and transit and active transportation as the town has implemented to date. And the last alternative 3, is number 3, is an alternative mode focused investment strategy where the needs and opportunities are addressed by investing at a higher percentage or higher than current proportions towards transit, active transportation, and new technologies. So we will be developing strategies and projects specifically to those alternatives. Again, this is open to comment from the public and other stakeholders, and we can refine these definitions, but this is really what we're presenting now and what we plan to bring to the next public meeting with details on which projects fit into which of these alternatives. So the next couple of slides outline our next steps. To date, we've reviewed the background information, analyzed the transportation needs and opportunities leading to this meeting today. Over the next few months, we'll be developing and analyzing the alternative strategies leading to a preliminary preferred strategy to present to the public in another public open house currently planned for the end of November. And based on your input, we will finalize the transportation master plan expected early in the new year. So how can you get involved? I mean, above and beyond the polling, thank you very much for your input. You can start now by responding to questions and comments made today at the conclusion of this presentation. And questions we don't get to today we'll respond over the next few days. And over the next month, you'll be able to provide your input through a public survey that's posted on the project website. There is a draw, actually, for a chance to win a gift card for those who complete the survey. And you can also, contact me. You can contact Meredith if you have any questions or comments. And in the fall, just a reminder that we'll be holding another public meeting, and you'll be able to provide comments on the approach and the preliminary preferred alternative strategy. But we'd like to thank you for your attention today. And we'd just like to open it up to questions. And again, if you want to provide comments or questions through the chat box, Gordon will be sort of summarizing them and reading them out. And if we get to all of our questions in the chat box, we'll open it up to those. You can use the raise your hand function, and that will allow you to ask a question directly.
And I encourage everyone, if you could go back one slide, Ray, again. I want to encourage everyone to, oh, one ahead.
I'm sorry.
How good. I want everyone to please, please, please subscribe. Please go to the Get Involved Innisfil.ca/TMP plan and subscribe, because as soon as there's any updates, as soon as the survey goes live, we will email you directly with the survey. So if you subscribe, you'll get that right away. So please do. Thank you.
Terrific. So I'm just going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to escape here. And I'm actually going to ask Gordon if we have any questions.
Sure. I can start off with one question here that we got in. You have population numbers to 2051, but how come you don't have employment numbers to 2051?
Okay, so as I mentioned, that this Simcoe County is sort of coordinating the allocation of population employment to the local tier, and I ask any Meredith or any other staff, if you want to jump in and correct me, please feel free. But the Simcoe County is responsible for allocating population and employment between the local municipalities. And through the county's municipal comprehensive review, which is ongoing. The latest interim update was just earlier in August. Currently, there's just under 200,000 jobs that have been allocated to the county, and the county is still in the process of figuring out where those jobs are going to be located. We'll be coordinating with the county to estimate the growth, the employment growth, along with the population growth over the next few months, and incorporating that into our transportation forecasts. I don't know if there are any other comments or no. Okay.
I can move on to the next question if there are no comments. One question I have here from the Slido poll is, please touch on how accessibility will be built into the planning stage.
Okay, the accessibility in terms of active transportation accessibility will be addressed through our review of existing and future needs for cycling and pedestrians. I think I'd mentioned in one of the slides that we will be looking at reviewing the 2018 plans for where connections are provided and helping prioritize those. In addition to that, we are looking at sort of additional connections through the orbit development and how pedestrian and cycling connections can be provided to that community. I hopefully that's addressed that question.
Another question, if there's no other comments on that one, is in terms of, there's two questions here that touch upon Uber data. I'm an Innisfil Uber driver. What does ridership look like going into 2022? Another question related to Uber statistics is what percentage of Innisfil residents use Uber? I don't think we have that data on hand. I'm not sure if the town does, but
we certainly can. I mean, we are reviewing some of that data along with the town's partnership with one of the universities. So we do have some of that analysis. We haven't incorporated into this presentation, but we can certainly address this question and post some preliminary information online. The 2022 forecasts, I think that's a difficult one just because of what has happened over the last year and a half. But whatever information that we have, we can certainly provide a synopsis online in the question and answer summary.
Maybe Paul, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I could just quickly add, just looking at our last update report that went to council in terms of riders as a portion of the town's population. Like we have in 2019, there's about 9,500 different riders that made at least one Innisfil transit trip. That's not to say every rider is a resident, but that gives a sense anyways that if our population is close to 45,000, then that it's about 10,000 of that population. Of course, in 2020, ridership was lower. We were at like 3,700 different riders made at least one Innisfil transit trip, but that's a trend of all transit systems that ridership did decrease. And just further to Ray in terms of it's a challenge to forecast to 2021 and 2022. It all depends on the path of the pandemic takes and how the reopens continue as well.
Paul.
Another question here is, how is the transportation planning process considering planning for residents who are retired, i.e. seniors?
So there are, I guess, the age component, and we did try and touch upon that in this presentation, recognizing that there are barriers associated with a sort of a range of demographics, but certainly the need to accommodate some demands associated with older members of the population. Those who may have difficulties with driving would certainly be an issue that we want to hear and address, and in developing the transit systems and connections to services and medical appointments and other sort of daily needs of that portion of the population. Within our travel demand forecasting, the demographics will be considered and the changing demographics. So the province in its population and employment forecasts, and it incorporates sort of demographic breakdown, age breakdown. And we will be looking at that to determine, whether travel patterns will be changing with people with a larger percentage of the population retiring, and province-wide, we are an aging population, even with increases in immigration, and most jurisdictions are dealing with that change in demographics. So I think there was a question earlier about accessibility. There are policy issues that we can address specifically related to pedestrian movements and better accommodating pedestrian crossings. There are issues of providing trails and other connections, and certainly so the demographics will be part of the transit strategy.
Another question here relates to the polls that were conducted throughout this presentation. There wasn't a lot of, there aren't going to be a lot of people here relative to the entire town. So the concern is, how is the validity of these responses going to relate to the overall concerns of the entire town.
So I'll say that the polls, I think, were in part to give us this, as I phrased it, I guess, a snapshot. Our hope is that the surveys that we have online will be a much more comprehensive measure of the input of the interested, members of the public. Hopefully we can get a good representation. Typically, surveys strive for 2 to 3% of households participating. If we can achieve that level of input, that would be tremendous. And again, we're hoping that folks will reach out and conduct that survey. But we'll be able to report on that and the level of input at the next public meeting. And we will be sort of summarizing the results of that more comprehensive survey following the month period that survey will be posted.
Yeah, and the poll for this meeting is kind of a fun tool to get you engaged. We definitely isn't the end of the survey. We'll be doing the big survey, so this is just a fun tool to get everyone involved. So lots of opportunities.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, Gordon. Did we have a question on the multi-use trail for on Innisfil Road? I think I saw that question. And I think I can answer that one. It's an easy one because it's in construction right now. So one of the questions that we received is, will there be a trail from the rec center to Alcona? And it is in construction. There's a section in front of the admin building right now that's already built, and the rest of the construction that you're seeing on IBR is also includes the extension of that multi-use trail.
I also see Jason Zimmerman has his hand up here on the call.
Yeah, hi, thank you. And I just wanted to make one note. I didn't see in the presentation any mention towards, and I see that you've identified future plans towards fixed transit route service. Has there been any consideration in this TMP to identify the road networks that would be likely used for that service? And I also like infrastructure that would be required to sustain that service, be it large waiting areas, that type of thing, or connection hubs if you were to do transit on demand or Uber style service to a main hub to get people to and from a main more frequent conventional transit service line. Would you be looking to maybe identify what roadways you'd want to use for that? I know that it's just, I want to make a note of it because it's an important thing to think about, because those types of things are hard to add after the fact. So if you have new development, that type of thing, if you can get ahead of it, it's really, it's a good thing to think about.
Thank you, Jason. That's an excellent point. We are just starting our review of the Uber data. We see that as the first sort of opportunity to identify where origin destination pairs are currently. Those pairs may change. I mean, especially with the GO station operational, some of the patterns will change. But we will be really starting there and then seeing if there are opportunities for the most logical origin destination pairs. Your comment about identifying streets that designing streets to be able to support the transit, finding streets where it's suitable given the residential sort of uses in some of those streets, definitely will be considered. Just currently, I mean, and we're going through this with another jurisdiction which currently doesn't have a transit service. It's quite a step to introduce a new service. There's a financial operating condition that the town would have to consider, and it would be a sort of a transition. You have to sort of find a a logical transition or integration with the Uber system that's currently underway. So this transportation master plan will identify greater opportunities, but we would anticipate that some more fulsome study, if the town were to implement scheduled service, a more fulsome study would follow this master plan to define which roads, to confirm which roads, to identify sort of design standards for those roads.
And then that's a good point. And I mean, when you're looking out as far as 2051, a lot can happen between now and then. So it's good just to think about what are the things that you want to look at now, right? You know, it could be 10 years or more before you're introducing a conventional service. But if you have some of the, I guess, lay down the tracks ahead of time, so to say, you know, with proper policies and that type of thing to help you identify where you're going to need it, it definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are on a tight schedule today because we have another public meeting for the land and lake plans after this. So Ray, if you could just go back again to your slide, I want to leave with the Get Involved website, because we want you to know that if you haven't had an opportunity to have your question answered, that we will, you can certainly email us, and the survey will be launched, and there'll be lots of opportunity for us to answer your questions. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I'll just wait for Ray to put that slide back up.
And all the questions we didn't get through today on the Slido and the chat box, we have it recorded, so we can touch upon that at a later time.
There we go. Share.
Sorry, Ray. Put you on the spot. Great.
Are we sharing? Am I sharing?
You are sharing, yeah.
Great.
So again, get involved innisfil.ca/TMP plan. My email is there, mgoodwin@innisfil.ca, and Ray's is also there, Ray back at rjburnside.com. So thank you all for attending. And we appreciate all your comments today and your future comments. So thank you.
Thank you.
We are live on YouTube. So Michael, did you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you, Meredith. So thank you, everybody, for attending this evening to introduce the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update and lake enjoyment strategy. So my name is Mike Tucker. I'm a partner with Think Design, and we are landscape architects and planners specializing in park and waterfront design. And I am joined tonight by Peter Hablum, also a partner at Think Design, and Mary Catherine Mihak of Mihak, Kelly and Associates. And Mary Catherine is our Parks and Recreation Planner. The project manager at the town of Innisfil is Meredith Goodwin. And we have about a 30-minute presentation. So these are the different parts of the presentation we're going to go through today. And it really is just an introduction to the process. We really want to highlight the opportunities that the public have to provide input on these two studies, as we're referring to them, but really it's really one study broken into two parts. So we're going to go over the study purpose. We're going to review the study team. We've got a large consulting team that's working on this with us, the process, the project timeline, and we have some interactive polls. So if you were part of the Transportation Master Plan presentation that preceded this, we're going to be using the same format, which is Slido. So if you have a smartphone or tablet handy, keep that handy, and we'll let you know how to get onto the interactive polls we're going to use. I'm going to hand it over to Mary Catherine to talk about the lake plan specifically, and then Peter to talk about the land plan. Peter's going to talk about the lake plan, and then we'll go through some next steps. At the end of the presentation, we're going to do some question and answer, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. But anything we aren't able to answer, we'll make sure to do so after the session. So the purpose of this study, we're really preparing two complementary long-term master plans. We have an update to the 2016 active Innisfil Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And then we're also developing a new plan, which is the Lake Simcoe Enjoyment Strategy. And so the idea here is to guide the town in providing land-based and water-oriented recreation services to residents and visitors over the next 20 years. And we want to ensure a considered community-directed approach to service provision within the context of significant growth in Innisfil. So we understand, of course, Innisfil is going through growth that is going to continue. And we want to make sure these plans really address that properly. So to prepare this study, we have quite a large team. We've broken it into these two plans, the land plan and the lake plan. And so this project is being led by planners and landscape architects, but we also have on our team a number of different specialists in different areas that we're going to be dealing with. So we have a market research surveying company that's working with us, which is really going to help with the telephone survey that I'll talk about in a moment. We have Plan B Natural Heritage, who's our ecologist on the team, looking at natural environment. We have civil engineering on our team to work with us on cost estimating and the municipal class environmental assessment process. We have management consultant on our team, John Litton, who's looking at tourism and market analysis. And then specifically on the lake plan side, we have touristics, who's looking at marina feasibility. And then we have coastal engineering from Baird, who's going to help with those water water improvements and shoreline improvements that we need to look at. So this is as we said, two plans, but it is partially a combined process. Obviously, as we're doing this meeting together tonight, and that's really starting with right now with the review of background studies and information. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Stakeholder engagement, which of course is just starting now. And we're doing that again as a combined process, looking at both the land plan and the lake plan. And we're providing recommendations for on both sides, for both the recreation master plan and for the lake enjoyment strategy. But in the end, we're looking at an integrated document with recommendations, implementation strategy that looks at both to make sure that they can be rolled out. So right now we are in the background study and information stage. We're reviewing and assessing relevant studies and reports. We're looking at that planning context to make sure that we understand what's going on around Innisfil and current issues that are affecting Innisfil. We have a marina feasibility assessment we're doing. Of course, there are a lot of private marinas in Innisfil, but we're going to look at whether or not there are additional services that the town should be providing in terms of access to water for watercraft. And of course, we're doing a fairly detailed site inventory and analysis, looking at all these parks and open spaces and points where the public can access the waterfront. The stakeholder engagement, of course, is a huge part of this process. And really the main portal for all of this is at getinvolvedinnisfil.ca. So I encourage you after this presentation to make sure you register on site on that site so that you can get updates as they happen, and things like surveys, and when draft recommendations are posted, you're able to you'll know when they're online and available for your input. So if you go to that site, look for the Land and Lakes project page, enter your email, and you'll be sure to get updates as they happen.
We really want to stress this because the survey is not quite live yet. So we do want to make sure that you get, please, specifically for the Land and Lakes, please subscribe to the project. I believe it's getinvolvedinnisfil.ca/land and lakes plan. Maybe I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, so we do have some surveys that are coming up. Let's go over into stakeholders. So we've started stakeholder interviews. We've completed about half of them. We've talked to council and staff, but we have a number of other ones we're going to be undertaking this fall. We have a random household telephone survey. So that is one that obviously is random. You'll get a phone call, or maybe you won't, but we have 400 of those that are going to occur. If you don't get a phone call, then the household survey is basically the identical survey where you can go online and complete that survey. So that's the survey that's not quite ready yet, but within the next 24, 48 hours, it could be live. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on that, please sign up at getinvolvedinnisfil.ca, get that update, and you'll be able to complete that survey as soon as it's available. We have 3 other surveys as well that we're going to be doing: a user group survey, a business survey, and a survey for service clubs. We have 2 engagement sessions we're going to be doing with youth this fall. We have a total of 3 public council presentations, so this is one of them, and we'll have one in the winter early next year, and then another one towards the end of completion of the project. That'll be the 3rd one. And then, of course, we've got a number of regular meetings with staff of town to make sure when we run through these, the recommendations and make sure they align with the other aspects of what's going on at the town. So at the end of the day, the products for this study are going to be recommendations with supporting rationale. We will be preparing lots of maps and concept drawings to make sure there's visuals to go along with these recommendations. So whether that's improvement specific to parks or areas along the waterfront, we'll be providing those drawings. Implementation schedule or timing. So we're going to be laying out when all these recommendations should happen to make sure that there's a logical sequence, that it works with budgeting, and that it can be rolled out in the right order. Part of that is going to be these cost estimates we're producing. So we've got capital cost estimates that are going to be prepared for any capital improvements we're recommending, as well as programming cost estimates that will be prepared. And then at the end, we'll have an integrated summary of both plans and a report and presentation video. So in terms of timeline, we did start within the last couple of months, and we're undergoing background summary review right now. We expect to wrap that up substantially this fall, but of course, as new information comes in, we always update that and include it in our evaluation. Online engagement, so the page is active now. So again, that'll be ongoing throughout the process and wrapping up. It'll close when the project ends. The random household telephone survey will likely start early in September, probably after the back to school rush. So if you do get a phone call this September and they're talking about this Land and Lakes plan, please do accept taking the survey, and it'll really, of course, help inform the process. Stakeholder interviews will continue this fall. Online surveys, we've got, again, the household one that's going to be issued in the next couple of days, followed by the other 3. Public information sessions, again, this is the first one. We'll have another one in the winter and then spring. Engagement with youth in the fall. We expect to have the draft plan prepared in winter of 2022. So that, of course, will be presented again and will be posted online. We'll be looking for feedback, and then the project should wrap up towards the end of spring 2022.
Michael, can you advise what is the stakeholder for the project?
Sorry, for the stakeholder interviews?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who would that be? Who's that? That's a question that I just can't answer.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've totally decided on who those are. So the first half of those were with council and staff. So we've completed those ones. The other ones would be more specialty, interest groups that we would be contacting at some point to make sure that we speak with them. So it might be a small group or individuals, but we haven't actually identified them yet. I think part of identifying them might be through the surveys and the comments that we hear. But yeah, we haven't selected anybody yet, so no one has been necessarily contacted to be those other stakeholder interviews.
A good example is some of the baseball organizations, dance organizations, that sort of, as a couple examples of
yeah.
stakeholders.
And if anybody is not contacted, then we do have those other surveys, which will be open to all those different groups. So so we ask a lot of questions in those surveys to get information that we might they can. So if it's a group that can easily answer a survey, we'll contact them through that. But if it's something where more of a discussion is needed, then there will be that discussion and an invitation.
Sorry, can I just make a quick comment about stakeholders? Really, anybody that's involved in the process is a stakeholder. So residents, user groups, the municipality, other agencies or groups we identify. So they're all really stakeholders. It's just that they're called different things and they're engaged in different ways. But really, everybody involved, everybody who has a stake in the process is a stakeholder. So that's just an overview of what a stakeholder is.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, we don't turn anybody away, but of course we don't speak with every citizen individually because that would take a decade. So, but if you feel like maybe you should be a stakeholder, contact us and then we'll figure out the best way to receive your input. So at this point, I wanted to make sure that everybody can actually use the interactive poll feature. And of course, we've got quite a large turnout, at least on Zoom here. So I know a number of you weren't at the Transportation Master Plan presentation. So how this works, if you have a smartphone or a tablet, you can go to slido.com through the browser. There's two ways to activate it. If you go to that website, it'll ask you for a code. And so the code here is Innisfil for this meeting. Or on the next page, if you get your camera ready on your smartphone or a tablet, you can use your camera to read the QR code. And that'll automatically then click on the little website that pops up, and then that'll allow you to activate and participate in these survey questions. So you will be prompted at certain times for the questions when they come up on the screen. So until you see a question on the screen, you won't be prompted. And then the results will show up on the screen in real time. So it's quite a neat interactive feature to see what everyone is thinking, what's priority. Now this is in addition to the household survey and the telephone survey that's about to happen. So this is more of an engagement tool just to get a feel for what's going on. But the serious survey is what's coming out in the next couple of days. So again, if you go to slido.com and put in the code Innisfil or scan this QR code, then you'll be able to answer the question in a moment. So I'll pause on this slide just in case you want to use the QR code. And then we've got a test question that we'll ask that just to make sure that it's working. Okay. So this one here, it works as a word cloud. So if you're not familiar with the word cloud, basically, if you answer this question in 1 or 2 words, what does Innisfil mean to you? Things should pop up on the screen. So someone's put home. If multiple people select home, like this happened, it gets larger. And so based on the size of the text, tells you how many people put that same and answer the question the same way. So we'll pause here for a moment just to see how, see what people are putting down. And then in a moment, I'm going to hand it over to Mary Catherine, and she's going to talk about the land plan or the Parks and Recreation master plan update. I think you can enter multiple answers if I'm not mistaken, so, which is fine. Obviously, home is the big one. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So Mary Catherine, I'm going to pass it off to you to talk about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Mike, if you can just go to the next slide, please. So again, it's a 20-year plan, and it's going to be updating the 2016 Active Innisfil Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So it'll be looking at what's needed to update and then to go forward to 2041. And the various stakeholder engagement activities that Mike spoke about in the previous slide will provide the information that we will use and integrate to assess and make recommendations in the 3 areas shown on the slide. So improvements to new and existing parks, trails, and outdoor facilities, direction on programming needs or opportunities, and improvements or additions to the indoor facility supply for a separate facilities master plan that the municipality is doing. So although it's a separate plan, we're asking questions about the indoor facilities as part of this process. That will be, and the answers to those questions will be retained for the to prepare the facilities master plan. And this is just to prevent having to do another survey about outdoor recreation facility, about indoor, sorry, recreation facilities in the near future when the town starts to prepare that plan. So you'll be asked about questions on parks, outdoor facilities and indoor facilities, and programming. Next slide, please, Mike. So we're going to be looking at the redevelopment of existing parks, and these are the elements shown on the slide that will be considered in determining the needs for the existing parks. So the land plan will consider a number of categories: existing parks that serve current residents, future parks that will be needed to serve future population growth, and what is needed in the way of infrastructure, such as playing fields, event spaces, and amenities such as shade structures, seating, naturalized areas, and washrooms, and how they will be best distributed throughout the town. So the existing parks are looking at these items here for what's needed to upgrade or redevelop them. And then next slide, Mike, please. New development of parks will determine what's needed in all new park developments in the municipality, and we'll be including those in the planning stages, areas such as Sleeping Lion, Innis Village, El Sami, to the design phases. So anything that's already in planning or design stages will be included in planning for future development parks. And we'll also consider opportunities for new parks to offset existing gaps in provision, rather than duplicating parks possibly that are too close to each other, for example. And we'll look at opportunities for organizations like school boards to contribute to future supply requirements or to collaborate on projects in providing those spaces. With population growth, there will be likely new schools being built. So that's an opportunity for the town and the boards to possibly collaborate in doing some green space developments, if that is of mutual benefit to both organizations. And we are going to look at updating the classification system for parks to determine whether or not there is a sufficient supply and distribution by type. So neighborhood parks, community parks, special purpose parks. And we'll be looking at a 20-year plan again for the Parks Development Program to anticipate this growth. Next slide, please, Mike. So the third component of the land plan in terms of physical infrastructure is the trail and path improvements. And again, this assessment will consider many of the same variables that we look at for parks. So existing supply, deficiencies, opportunities to improve the user experience, and to create a better connected network. And all of these areas, the parks, existing parks, future development parks, and the trail and path improvements will be incorporated in a coordinated 20-year implementation plan. So that determines sequence of development and also estimated costs to implement them. So it will be coordinated across types of parkland and trails. Next slide, please, Mike. So this is about programming. So what happens in parks and open spaces. So when we talk about programming parks, we consider both opportunities to introduce formal programs, such as outdoor fitness, wellness, instruction, community events, day camp, soccer, lacrosse, as well as providing infrastructure and amenities for people to use on their own, such as splash pads, pump tracks, picnic shelters, dog off leash areas. So it's a combination of formal programming and informal programming. And we also consider opportunities to increase the use of parks throughout the year, as historically they've been underused or unused during the late fall, winter, and early spring. And this is typical of municipalities across Ontario and Canada. And there's great interest now in activating parks at other times of the year. So when we look at what should be provided, we also look at what is appropriate for the town to provide in the way of programming. And this is determined by the town's mandate and role in service provision. So how does it typically go about providing programs directly as a programmer or indirectly in collaboration with other organizations? What are the gaps in existing programs or activity opportunities? And what is community interest and demand for new opportunities, for new things, new opportunities to participate formally or just on their own? And the intent really is to delineate a reasonable level of service and approach to providing programs for broad community participation. So we're trying to identify the appropriate niche for the town in providing these services to the community. Next slide, please, Mike. So what we've heard to date, based on our initial interviews and a first tour of parks, which we've just completed this week, is that there's going to be significant population growth over the term of the plan. And we want to maintain the existing rural as well as embrace the new urban character. That will be, there'll be two elements of the community that need to be recognized and maintained. And we want to emphasize placemaking and who is the end user, like who's going to be using these services and how. So the definition of placemaking, which comes from the Project for Public Spaces, is both an overarching idea and a hands-on approach for improving a neighborhood, city, or region. And it requires people to collectively reimagine and reinvent public spaces as the heart of every community. And as a process, it capitalizes on the local community assets, so what you already have, inspiration, so let's be creative, and potential. And it results in the creation of quality public spaces that contribute to people's health, happiness, and well-being. And this is a prescription actually of the town's strategic plan, is to make Innisfil a place and not just a space. So on overall, the plan will be deliberate in recommending a community-wide municipal parks and recreation system. And it must be a useful tool that can be respond to change as the community grows and evolves, because there's a lot of change in your future. And we want the plan to remain responsive and current as change occurs. And next slide, please, Mike. So to date, and this is just what we've been able to, I guess, extract from what we've heard and what we've seen, we've identified a few key issues and opportunities that we will seriously consider in the plan. How do we use parks and trails and recreation to create linkages and vibrant places? And what do we need to do to address existing asset management as well as growth-related service provision? So we need to update what's already been provided and then move forward with new services for the new population. And we want to balance service provision across the town. Again, the urban, rural character of the municipality with settlement areas rather dispersed. We want to make sure that each area is adequately served given its population and the resources available. And we also want to consider public and private land in creating connected networks. So how do we possibly access private land if needed to make this system work? And we also want to look at growing programs, particularly in areas that are deficient. And some of the areas we've heard so far are heritage, arts, and culture, parks-based programming, winter activities, and visitors. Do we want to attract more visitors, and how do we want to do that? And also to look at opportunities for some creative park design, environmentally diverse landscaping, and naturalization where it works. And also, and not the final, I guess, consideration is what we need to consider what the regional market offers in terms of services. So Barrie is nearby. Residents are going to continue to use some services in Barrie, but maybe residents from Barrie might use some services in Innisfil, but we want to make sure that we're not duplicating. In fact, we're complementing what's already available and what might be needed in the future. I think that's it for me. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mary Catherine. So we have another poll question we would like to ask. We have a few in a row here. So the first one being, how long have you lived in Innisfil? Less than 1 year, more than, or 1 to 5, 5, 10. So interesting. Most people, of course, tending more than 10 years. So interesting to know. And I think we have a similar question that will be in the more formal survey. It'll be released in a few more days. So. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one since we have a few of these. So I know we're using time up here. Rate your satisfaction with Innisfil parks and open spaces. So a 1 means you're not at all satisfied, where 5 means extremely satisfied. So most people are right down the middle, seems. With 3. Okay. Well, hopefully through this plan we can help improve the offerings to make that a 5 next time they do this plan. Next question: what do you like most about Innisfil's parks and open spaces? And I'm sure that we are not covering everything here, but do your best based on the options provided here. It's not surprising. It's the access to water and beaches. Okay. So I'm just going to pass it over to Peter now, who's going to talk about the lake plan in a little bit more detail.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Peter, one of the partners at Think Design. This is the lake plan portion. It's again a 20-year plan to 2041. And it's basically to investigate and improve access and enjoyment of Innisfil's waterfront. It also wants to look at the direction of year-round programming needs and opportunities, and assess the need, interest, and market for it's possible in municipal marina or town docks and moorings. We want to consider possible water-based commercial uses along the waterfront, and it could be a possibility of pop-up shops or things like that. So we're looking at these issues or these opportunities. And the next slide, Mike. What will these results inform? I guess it'll inform the current conditions of what we're seeing at the road ends, et cetera. What opportunities there are for waterfront programming. Again, business opportunities along the waterfront. And we have had some interviews regarding what could actually maybe happen. Also, the recommendation of physical improvements, and the physical improvements could be grading and drainage and that sort of thing. And also, what's really important is, when we've done other waterfront master plans, this is the implementation sequence and a priority for these different portals against the water and how to do these improvements. And we will use these findings to help us do that. Next slide. So the road ends are such an interesting part of Innisfil, and from the results, you can kind of see that these are little portals people have onto the waterfront, and you have access to the waterfront. So we're going to be looking at the road ends. There's 40 plus. I think there's 49 that have been identified. There might be a little bit more, and we're going to look at all these different ones, identify any sort of physical site improvements. And that could be, again, grading or drainage or others. We'll also look at the natural cultural heritage opportunities and historical opportunities at these different road ends. Opportunities for amenities. A lot of some of these have been improved already, but any sort of opportunities for benches, shade, or signage, improved beach sand, that sort of thing. And again, most importantly, develop a program or matrix for the priority of improvements and how to implement them in a reasonable way for capital budgets, etc. Also, we're looking at a possible divestment of specific road ends. And also importantly, we're building on work that's already been completed, right? So there has been an exploration done, and we're using all those inputs into helping us best understand the redevelopment of these road ends. Next slide. So what are some of the key issues and opportunities? And I always like using the terms, what are the key opportunities to leverage, I guess, because a lot of these things are really opportunities. But accessibility, AODA compliance is very important as we move forward. And you can see this actually happening some of the road ends already. We're looking at the natural heritage or the ecological considerations for the shoreline, for the land, for the water, very important. Drainage issues, a lot of these road ends have drainage issues and might need upgrading, etc. Water access, which is also equally important. And local versus visitor access. We've heard a lot about this. And incorporating stakeholder comments, as you've learned, which is you, and your concerns, and moving forward. Next slide. So the road end improvements, what we're doing now is we're mapping the inventory of all the road ends, and we actually have been out this week looking at them with our preliminary site work. Again, identifying key assets to leverage, I like to call them. So you can kind of see what we can do out there and identify the opportunities and challenges. And a lot of these road ends or portals to the water have opportunities for really great opportunities for sand beach opportunities or enhancements, drainage, signage, and amenities. So what we're ending with is we want to have a series of recommendations for each of these road ends. And what we've done before is we almost, this is not necessarily what we'll do here, but this is an idea of what the end product could be, is a series of almost like a booklet of all these different road ends and how these could be improved, a budget that would be available to them, and the priority sequence of how they could be created. So we're kind of moving forward with something that can really be implementable as Innisfil moves forward. Next slide. As part of the RFP, we are looking at the municipal marina and the opportunities for town-operated dockings and moorings. So, we're going to look at the marina market in Innisfil, in the region, and we're going to, with our team, evaluate all the opportunities and challenges of operating municipal marinas. We have actually heard already, from our previous stakeholder meetings, some input on this, but we're exploring it further, and also just move forward and possibly explore this. And so we'll confirm, like we said here, and also provide recommendations associated with watercraft access in general. So because all the different access points have requirements. So that's essentially the lake plan, what we're doing. It's exploring a few more business opportunities along the waterfront. We're assessing the market and identifying the business opportunities, because there are a lot of different opportunities, I think, and we've always, there could be pop-up shops, pop-up different opportunities at different portals to the water. So these could be potential visitor attractions to locals, and also to people from away as well. It really depends on what you see. And also we'll investigate the economic opportunities and benefits to the town and residents as well. Next slide.
Well, thanks, Peter. I think so. We've got a few more.
Yeah, more questions. Okay.
A few more poll questions. So how satisfied are you with the current access to the waterfront? 1 means not at all satisfied, 5 means extremely satisfied. And I realize this question, it's a little ambiguous. What does satisfied mean? I'm sure there's things you like about it and some things you don't, but as we go through the project, we can start to maybe define what satisfied means for people. Okay. All right, I'm going to go on to the next question. It's interesting that 4 out of 5 is not too bad. How often do you visit one of Innisfil's parks or road ends? Whether it's every day, multiple times a week, a few times a month, a few times a year, or never. I suspect by the nature of people being here that it's going to be multiple times. Okay. I think we got a couple more. So what improvements would you like to see to the existing road ends? And again, this is not a complete list, and we're going to work through what all the different features could be. But if there's anything here that appeals to you, you can select it. Oh, interesting that no changes needed is scoring fairly high. So. And this is our final question, I believe. So are there any improvements not mentioned you'd like to see at the existing road end? So this is open. You can type anything you like. And if there's anything that we think is really important that we're not mentioning, then now's the time. Better sand. Yeah, we've heard that quite a bit. And we've seen that. Better monitoring. I'll scroll through here. I'm gonna let this one go for another minute because this is a good input. Now, again, so the survey that we are going to be posting the next couple of days does have, we are asking very direct questions, but we also have an open question at the end where you can provide input. So, so if you think of anything after tonight, obviously you can provide input through that survey. If there's anything we haven't asked and you'd like to provide input on. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to, so we got one more slide here and then we'll open up for, we'll answer some questions. So next steps. So again, this project is in the initial stages of gathering information and we're gathering feedback from the community. So of course, no decisions have been made yet. I think there's a lot of questions that have been asked that really we're not in a position to answer yet. We're still getting that information. So it's great that you're asking those questions, but we may not have answers just, regarding what we are going to do about certain issues. That's part of this process. Registering for the project updates at getinvolvedinnisfil.ca. So that's really important, again, so that you can be informed as we put things online. First thing will be these surveys, but as additional engagement opportunities do pop up, you'll be the first to hear about it. You'll be sure not to miss anything. So please go to the Land and Lake Plan page and sign up. The online survey, we were hoping to have it ready for tonight, but it's probably gonna be another day or so. So look for that. And again, all the information we received this fall will be used to prepare a draft recommendations, which will be shared in early 2022. But we have lots of information gathering to still to do. So again, we're just at the early stages. So we've got some questions up here. So people have jumped on board, which is great. So now I'm just going to read these out, and then we'll see if we can answer them within the time we have. So first one at the top.
Are you going to take verbal questions?
We can do that as well, I guess, if there's time.
I would like to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Right now? That's fine.
Why don't we do a few of these and then we'll come back to you. So don't let me forget about you, okay?
I won't let you forget about me.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
So
what I would request, if anyone has a verbal question, so we're going to go through the written questions that we've received, and if you have a verbal question and we have time, because we only do have 15 more minutes, please put your hand up on the at the bottom. There's a little option to put your hand up, so I request that you do that. Thank you.
All right, so the first one here is, what measures will be put in place to protect the enjoyment of residents of Innisfil over and above tourists? Who will be your priority when planning? So, I mean, this is really to be determined. We haven't, I think a lot of it's going to be based on what we hear from the community. I think there's lots of things to consider before we have an answer to that. We understand that the residents and community do need to come first in terms of being able to enjoy things, but there is a lot of benefits for tourism, and there are tourism dollars too. So if the community is interested in gaining those benefits from tourism, then that needs to be considered as well. So we're not really in a position to answer that question, but that is going to be something we need to look at as part of this plan. How we balance residents versus tourism.
Maybe you could briefly speak about how we're doing this even through the survey. That the survey is going to be only for residents, and we'll be looking at. I'll answer it. That the survey is going to be for residents of Innisfil only, and we also are looking at specific areas. So we are making sure that we're looking at the concerns for not just, of course, Innisfil as a whole, or comments as Innisfil as a whole, but we're also going to be looking at your individual areas. Individual communities.
That's right. So that's a good point. It's not a one size fits all. Like, there are certain spaces that probably do make sense to be very much a local place that can be enjoyed by locals, and it would make sense to open it up and encourage tourism. But others are probably more conducive to tourism. So again, we'll be looking at all of that. And as Meredith mentioned, the survey is very much, it's focused on residents only. So we are asking for resident input on that survey. Second one, how are these improvements helping keep the health of the lake? Natural shoreline is important for natural vegetation and wildlife. Yeah, so that's a very good point, and that's why we have an ecologist on our team, and we have shoreline experts as well. So everything we do is going to be looked through that lens as well, to make sure that we're not doing anything detrimental to the health of the lake or the shoreline, because that is an important ecotone there between land and lake that we need to protect and respect. Third one is just a comment. I believe the survey should be sent to every home in Innisfil. Residents use of in-back park or lack of.
So the way we're going to be, the survey is available online, but also for people that can't access the survey via the internet, we will have paper copies that will be available at the library. And I believe we're going to be taking some to Sandy Cove, some paper copies, and there'll be paper copies at our administration office. So once the survey is ready, we'll make sure there'll be paper copies available.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, we often get this comment, but so many people will do it online. So I think it's better to react to it as a request only, because we're happy to do that. But if we were to send, that'd be a lot of paper to send out to everybody, and we want to be environmentally conscious as well. Making sure the public has access to the lake. Please define public. Well, I mean, we haven't decided, you know, local versus tourism, but by public we mean, you know, open to everybody. In general, we haven't decided, you know, it's a very site specific thing, I think, that we'll be looking at. So public will probably mean a different thing, or who is accessing the, you know, in terms of, we're talking about lake, who is accessing at different locations will be a site specific decision that we'll work through with through this process. As a comment about, don't think road ends require to attract tourists. When will we have safety enhancements at our road ends? Most are designated parklands such as Boys. So, you know, we'd have to look at that as a recommendation, and, you know, the rollout of that. So through this process, we can look at safety enhancements and, you know, life-saving equipment and where they would be required. Just a comment there about business opportunities should be for local and not giving out free parking passes. We have heard a ton about the waterfront, and I know that is a big part of the study, but most people in Innisfil don't live close to the lake. And that's a good point. I mean, that there is the two plans. So we have the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, which is not looking really at the lake. There are some parks, of course, that are on the lake that we will be looking at, but there are the two studies, but we have to look at them together. So not all the attention is on the waterfront. It's just it is a key component of the plan. Another comment, non-residents need to pay as a walk-in into our main beach and our road ends. As a taxpayer, we are paying for a free day for a fun for these visitors. So we will look at that. Who should I speak to regarding a specific road and its maintenance or lack thereof? So I guess, Meredith, that would be maybe through the Engage online engagement portal. You can provide a comment through that. Meredith's contact information is there.
And one of the points about the survey is we do talk about specific areas, and also at the end of the survey there will be an open part where you can make any comments that you want. If you feel like there's something that's missing from the survey and you wanted to provide more comments, you can certainly do that through the survey. It's just a way to make sure that we get everything in one place. So as I said, please subscribe, and I will be sending out that survey as soon as it's ready to everyone that's subscribed.
Yeah, it really is helpful when it all comes through one place, because, and early in the process, because it we do want to get everybody's input, but don't leave it to the last minute, because it makes it harder to address it. So. Okay, I think that's all the written questions here.
May I ask my question?
Sure, go ahead, Marvin.
Okay. My name is Marvin Geist, and I'm a resident of Innisfil for the last 74 years. We've been on this Zoom now for 55 minutes. And about 50 minutes ago, someone asked the definition of stakeholder involvement. And at no time did any of you consultants mention the shoreline resident or the cottager. Not once did you mention the cottager. I am extremely disappointed that this meeting is being held on August the 25th, a week or 10 days before Labor Day, when most of the cottagers go home. They don't know anything about your lake plan. They haven't received any notice per se. Something could have gone out in the tax bill. Something could have been mailed out to everybody. Those who are specifically affected by water access are not being included in your work.
Well,
Because
actually,
you haven't mentioned the cottager once. There is a specific bylaw that relates to shoreline residents, but you have done nothing here with regard to getting our involvement. There are 58 people who are involved in this Zoom meeting. And I don't know how many are cottagers, but we have one of the
we actually look at all the residents as cottagers are the same as residents. And so this survey is public for all residents and including cottagers. And that's exactly why we had this public meeting at this time while it's in the summer, so that we can make sure that we get the cottagers and the residents. So thank you for your comments.
Can I add something, Meredith? We quite
Yes.
often also notify ratepayers associations.
You have not
We notify ratepayers associations about the availability of the survey. So if the Cottagers Association has a website or a newsletter, they will you'll hear about it that way.
That's after.
Not sure we have any other questions here. Will the questions in the Zoom chat be added to the list, and will they be published? We'll have to figure out how to do that. We will have a record, of course, of all of these, and we can see about maybe publishing the answers to these ones as well. So, and generally, what we do with the master plan, we do include the feedback we get. We don't publish, of course, who has said what, but we often do provide some written information in terms of the questions that were asked or comments that were made. We provide that's all public, so so you can see what your neighbors are saying and the recommendations they're making. So we try to be very transparent about all of that. Don't know if I see any other questions. So we're new to this app, so I'm not sure if the new ones pop up at the top or the bottom.
I see that Dick has a question. Dick, go ahead.
Oh.
You've raised your hand. Can you unmute, Dick? You're
okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. There are also beaches like there's the Alcona Beach Club, with a beautiful beach. Is that included also in your survey? And you talk about over 40 locations. What are all the locations? Will that be publicized? All the locations that you're looking at?
Yes. Dick, if you want to email, I will. All the road ends are actually online already from the previous master plan that we did, and I believe it's on the newest Get Involved. I'll make sure that it's there. But the previous master plan was on there, and it shows all the locations of the road ends. So please go to that project page, and it will be on there if it isn't already. Thank you.
Yeah, and the Alcona Beach Club, will that be looked at too? Because that's a beautiful beach for the neighborhood, but it is only for certain people.
Yeah, we are only looking specifically at the properties that are owned by the town.
Okay.
Thank you. Jeffrey, we have Jeffrey. You can unmute yourself, Jeffrey.
Hi, I'm a resident of Innisfil for the last 20 years. And I happen to be next to an access way. I'd like to know about the parking problem that could develop, and also the trash problem that could develop from having more people using these access points.
Well, I think that's a very important consideration. So we have to make sure that we're managing all of that. So we don't have an answer yet. It is sort of a site-specific thing, but we in our work so far and looking at these, parking is something that keeps coming up, of course, and we understand that there's certain measures in place right now because of COVID and the heightened interest in the road ends, but we don't expect that's going to drop off when we go back to some sort of normal. So that's an important consideration. We have to look at parking, and we need to make sure that we are safety and and impact on the local residents to those road ends are all considered. So again, it's a site-by-site look, consideration. Some of these road ends or portals, as Peter was calling them, they're quite large, and they could maybe support some parking. Some of them already have some parking, and other ones, of course, are not appropriate at all. So we'll be very transparent as we go through the process about our decision-making process, what we're proposing, and then at that point, we'll be looking for feedback to see if it would make sense what we proposed, and if not, I'm sure we're going to hear about it, and we can refine and revise our recommendations to make sure it is appropriate based on what we're hearing.
But to reiterate what Mike's saying, it's top of mind. It's very top of mind. It's one of our key considerations, including the services of increased waste and garbage and that sort of thing as well.
Due to time, we have one hand up, Rod Boyton, so I'm going to let Rod speak, and that will be the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Meredith. I simply wanted to just say two things. This is the very beginning stage of everything. So we're not going to get answers right now. That's the whole purpose of this, is to get the question. Secondly, I just wanted to point out about Innisfil Beach Park. I'm just wondering, I really believe a study should be done, or a survey of the town of people about Innisfil Beach Park, and maybe it's already been done. Somebody can tell me that. But, one person called it Disneyland, and that's the thing is, are we sure we really want to go down this path of packing that park full of like an amusement and turning it into a world thing when, maybe the residents just want to have quiet enjoyment of that park? It's just something that maybe residents should have a chance to speak to. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Red. I don't know, Meredith, if you wanted to answer the question regarding a survey that had been done maybe in the past.
Yeah, so there was, we did a master plan for specifically for Innisfil Beach Park, which was completed in 2020. So we aren't specifically looking at the amenities within that park as part of this master plan, because we already have a master plan for Innisfil Beach Park, and there was a large engagement process for that one. So thank you, Rod. And I would like to thank everyone for attending. And as if you could just put that slide back on with to show where the website is, so we can leave everybody with that. Because this is just the beginning, and we want to make sure we hear everything from everybody. We had a very short window of time here, so please subscribe, and we will make sure you get that survey and your comments are heard, and you can email me as well. So thank you all for attending, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.